me wait for you guys to pop in. I feel like it lags for a little. All right, palm tree killer's in here, so I guess we can start. Palm tree killer. If you guys don't remember palm tree killer from last time, he will now be a regular. Hey, Veronica. Hey, Cliff. I've seen you in here before. All right, we got Drizzle in here. Cool. Okay, so today we're going to talk about conspiracy theories again. So if you guys have been following me for a while, which I think a couple of you have, hey, Brendan, I covered this in 2022 at some point, but I really wanted to, okay, palm tree, you need to be muted right now. I covered this topic in 2022, but I wanted to cover it again. This might be just for personal reasons, but I feel like I've specifically encountered more of these type of conspiracy theories. I know it was super prevalent during COVID times, but I also feel like a lot of COVID type conspiracies have extended through now. And I do know people personally who used to not subscribe to like a lot of these conspiracy theories, but after 2020, I feel like conspiracy theories have like taken off. Not to say that they're new, because they've been around a very long time. And that's one thing I do want to emphasize, is that this is just me saying that I feel like I'm I'm on the internet more than I used to be. I usually wasn't on the internet before. And two, I'm like a member of, like, I would say the left. And I do know that a portion of the left with COVID, with vaccines, kind of broke off and became really anti-vax. And now there's like this World Economic Forum conspiracy that I had no idea existed. And I do see that like tenants of the internet, of like the streamer world, do believe in this shit. And I wanted to revisit some of the information that we talked about in 2022, because I know a lot of you weren't here at that time, and also some new stuff. A lot of this was also inspired by, I was watching Lex Friedman. I'm not sure how you say his name, and I'm really bad at saying names. Yuval Noah Harari. He's a historian and an author, and he had a really, I think it's gone viral. I don't know, probably, maybe not. Are we going to talk about Jews? We're going to bring them up, but we're not going to talk about a specific conspiracy theory, although you guys are free to bring those up in the chat if there's ones that like come up, or whatever. You guys can do whatever in the chat. I'm going to talk about conspiracy theories in general, who's more likely to believe in them, why we believe in them, what purpose they serve, and then what we can do to combat them. Those are kind of going to be my talking points. So anyway, I saw a clip with him on Lex Friedman talking about these, and I liked a lot of what he had to say. And a lot of what he had to say is reiterated. It's reiterations of stuff that I consistently say when I'm confronted with these theories. I also have a friend who show us your nails. So I broke a nail in Santa Barbara when I was going to do the Whatever podcast last week at the airport. And so I had to get them done there. So hopefully you guys like them. Yeah, this is a fun topic. And a lot of the research into this topic is really interesting. So as Yuval was saying, conspiracy theories, and I've said this before, have kind of always been around. They've just changed form, and they've changed who the evil actors are. Like when we're talking about a global cabal theory, it's basically this theory that a small group of people influence the world. And a lot of times they're concealing this from the world, or they're concealing their identities at times too. So we've had these have taken many forms: witches, the Red Scare. People don't think of Hitler and Nazis as a conspiracy theory, but it did start out as a conspiracy theory that the Jews, global Jewish cabal, was controlling everything, and they run everything, and that's how that started. So it was also a conspiracy theory. Illuminati, which was kind of what I was, I wouldn't say grew up on, but like in like high school, that was what we would hear a lot. And now I think we hear a lot of the Matrix or WEF, but the Matrix, which is like basically the red pill world believes, oh, this is what they want you to think, and blah 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 blah, and this nothing you hear is real, and you need to free yourself of the lies of the media, the lies of the government, the lies of this, the lies of that. And not to say that the media is right all the time or that the government is always honest, but the global cabal theory has this idea in their head that there is a group of powerful elites, and these elites are running everything, and we don't know, and the media is just a puppet, and politicians are just puppets for this cabal. And it's funny because sometimes when powerful people, maybe like Andrew Tate or Elon is a big one, like even Kanye, we see that they're like, oh, they're not really crazy, they're trying to tell us the truth. Like they have information because they're powerful of this elite secret group, and they're trying to tell us. Kanye's pretending to be crazy. Andrew Tate was jailed because he was gonna tell us the truth. Elon is trying to, you take all the symbolism and everything. So again, these are not new, they've just taken on many different forms. 109 countries can't all be wrong. What do you mean? Yeah, palm tree killer, that was a big conspiracy theory in our high school. So also these conspiracy theories, although they've always been around, they increase in times of despair. So I think that's why they became a little bit more prevalent during COVID. But a 2018 study, researchers at the University of Minnesota surveyed more than 3,000 Americans. They found that participants who felt that American values were eroding were more likely than others to agree with conspiratorial statements, such as many major events have behind them actions of a small group of influential people. A political scientist at the University of Miami and his colleagues have shown that people who dislike the political party in power think more conspiratorially than those who support the controlling party. So there's all these little things about us and our psyche that make you more likely to believe or not to believe in this. And we do know that there has been research to indicate that if you believing in a conspiracy theory is predictive of believing in other conspiracy theories. So there are people who seem to have a predisposition or are more inclined to believe in conspiracy theories than others. And we're going to point out maybe some of the reasons why, and maybe what traits those people have, or what motivates those people. And also, why do conspiracy theories exist? Do they serve a function? Do they have some type of adaptive function for us? Is there an evolutionary reason, a psychological reason? And the answer to those things is yes. There's a reason that they're so prevalent. So, and of course, conspiracy theories, this idea that a small group of people can run a bunch of things is nonsensical. And he talks about that in the interview, that it's impossible for a small group of people to be able to predict and control everything. That's just not how it works. It's very hard actually for people to predict anything. And he uses the example of the Iraq War. Here we are, the most powerful nation with the most powerful military. We go in and it doesn't end up going the way we want. So the idea that COVID was this conspiracy and this is exactly what people wanted, and they knew that this was going to happen, then they put out the vaccine. You can't predict the future that way. And it's hard to even predict what a small number of people are going to do, much less the entire world. To be able to predict how the entire world is going to react to things is not possible. We're all human beings. We're all flawed. We simply don't have that kind of power. We also, the world is just too complex for it. Also, this idea that they can be concealing their identities and you don't know who they are. It doesn't work. With power comes publicity. In order to be influential, people have to know you. People have to follow your message. Like could Hitler really have influenced people if he was hiding, like if he didn't speak, if he didn't have that influence? So this idea that there's this secret, like just cabal that's like, nobody knows, and they're like up at having these secret meetings, but they're so powerful and they control everything. It's just not possible. So okay, let me make sure I'm not missing the chat. It's attractive because it offers a single explanation to complex problems. So I don't need to understand the world. I don't need to do research on this. I don't need to understand geopolitics. As long as I understand this explains geopolitics. I don't have to understand medicine and COVID and vaccines, because as long as I understand this global cabal, which has evil intentions, is behind it all, I don't need to understand anything. I get it. I understand the world. I know everything. That's really a big proponent of it. Also, conspiracy theories are much harder to get away with. How do I get my eyelashes to look like this? I get eyelash extensions. Are much harder to get away with now in 2023 than like the 1940s, right? We all have cell phones. We have these 1984 devices all over. We are literally see leaked messages, emails from top government officials. So this idea that the government would be able to keep this super, 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 super crazy secret and it would never get leaked, even though there's so many opposing political interests in the government, and they're all still on the same team and they're all trying to hide things from us, even though we see, like we said, leaked information from some of the top officials, like presidents, it's not possible, I think, to have the kind of conspiracies that we even used to have, that actually some of them did come to fruition. Popular COVID conspiracy fallacy. It was manufactured by China in a lab and secretly released. Also, it's harmless flu bug that we don't need to protect ourselves with masks or vaccines. Yeah, there's a lot of contradictions in conspiracy theories. Yeah, this is not to say that if you don't believe, this is like a kind of false dichotomy that I see a lot with vaccines or with COVID, and also the perfectionist fallacy, that just because it's not 100% effective and whatever, like they said it was, therefore now all those claims are on equal footing with claims that have no evidence. That's a popular one with COVID and vaccines. And also this false dichotomy of, okay, either you believe everything and you think COVID, the response was great and the government handled it great and you agree with mandates and you agree with this, or there's no in between. You can't say, well, no, COVID is real, it is legitimate, but it doesn't mean that the way we handled it 100% of the time was the best way to handle it. And it's with COVID in particular, it was so unprecedented, and there's no way we could have gotten the response perfectly down. There's no way we could have. We never dealt with it before. And I do think that the scientific community maybe spoke with a little too much confidence, but I also don't blame them, because they kind of had to. I'm not saying I agree with everything that they did or I agree with all the actions of Fauci or anything like that, but we didn't know what we were dealing with. And so, of course, there were going to be mistakes. It would be very bizarre, almost conspiratorial, to believe that it could have been executed flawlessly and we could have known exactly what it was and our response would have been perfect and the vaccine would have got it exactly right and nobody would ever get, that's not realistic. Okay. So the internet is interesting, because on one hand, it's a place where we all have access to information. I can read about COVID. I can read about what causes people to believe in conspiracies or not believe in conspiracies. I can look at studies. I can look at sources that debunk your sources. I can look at the validity. I can do all of that without having to go to a library, right? That is unprecedented power if we're looking at our history. At the same time, it's also been a vehicle to spread mass information, versus back in the day where, you got your information from TV and whatever people said on TV, you believed it. That wasn't good because they could be wrong. But at the same time, you weren't going to get your crackhead uncle's memes that are like, 80% of people with vaccines are getting cancer. And people are like, okay, I'm going to retweet that. You didn't have that issue either. So I think it's a double-edged sword kind of, or maybe that's not the right phrasing, but clearly there's a good and a bad. Okay. So, and feel free to comment, and this isn't one of the ones where I make you guys wait till the end so I can get through it, although we could. I don't know, why did Roast complain so much? He was cooked in wine. Thank you for sharing. So, what are some of the reasons people believe in conspiracy theories? So there's been a lot of research that some people believe in conspiracy theories is linked to people's need for uniqueness. The higher the need to feel special and unique, the more likely to believe in a conspiracy theory. So there's some social motivations to feel good about themselves and the group they belong to. This idea that you want to be the hero. I figured it out. I identified the villains. I'm special. I know the truth. I'm part of that group in history, right? I love my corny puns. I'm glad you do. There has been certain traits associated with believing in conspiracy theories. We're going to talk about these more. These seem really bad, and I want to make it clear that I'm not knocking people who believe in conspiracy theories. Like, if you guys have watched my stream on free will, or you know my beliefs on free will, I kind of don't knock people for believing in anything because I don't think they have a choice. So I want to make that clear. I'm not saying that these people are bad people. I actually don't think they're bad people. A lot of the motivations for believing in these things are things that are not in their control, and also a lot of them, like the friend that kind of motivated me to do this, he's a nice guy, he's a great guy. He thinks that he's looking out for the people, and that the World Economic Forum is evil and they're harming innocent people, and that's why he feels so passionately about it, and he really believes it. So while we think that these conspiracies are annoying and we get angry and we're like, why are you so fucking stupid? A lot of us feel that way. I think it's good practice to remember that the people who believe in conspiracy theories are not necessarily our enemies, although it's important to debunk them, obviously, because when mass numbers of people believe in these things, it has destructive ramifications for our society. Palm Tree Killer 69. I think it's because people need to feel okay because they can't see/predict the future. They want certainty to give them a peace of mind. It helps ease them with their everyday problems and makes life terrible. You know what? This is excellent commentary. I love you. If you guys don't know, Palm Tree Killer is like my best friend, who now is joining every stream. He was so mad last week because I didn't have one because I was out of town. He's like, "You're not doing it." Yeah, so this idea, like, and you guys know this is where I think religion comes from, the idea that people want to be like, I know what's going on. Human beings don't like chaos. They don't like uncertainty. They don't like complexity. They want solutions. They want answers. And conspiracy theories, I think, like religion, provide people answers. So there's definitely a survival edge. And you could look at this in evolutionary terms of being superstitious or being conspiratorial actually helped you. Because if every time, you heard a sound, you assumed that it meant there was a tiger, 99 out of 100 times you were wrong, but that one time you were right, you survived. So it's been embedded in us through evolution. And even though it doesn't serve a purpose on its own, it's a byproduct of certain adaptive features of ours that, oh my God, there's a fly. Okay. Certain adaptive features of ours that do serve an actual function. So, for instance, pattern perception, which is this idea that we think people and events are causally related when they're not. We, as human beings, we tend to find patterns. We try to link things together. We look at the stars and we're like, oh, that's shaped like Mickey Mouse. It's a tendency that we have. And a lot of times we find patterns that aren't there. So we connect different visual. So that's called a pareidolia. I might be saying that wrong, which is visually connecting things, like seeing a face on a bark of a tree or seeing a specific sign in a light projected like in the White House. Clustering, which is the tendency to find a pattern in random sequences of data. For example, finding logic in a randomly generated sequence such as XVVX. Like, when people see like all these numbers and like, oh, well, every third one is this and this means this is a code. So we have this desire to find patterns. Okay, we want to find patterns. And obviously this gave us an edge because we wanted cause and effect. We wanted to be able to predict things. We wanted to be able to find patterns in our evolutionary history because that helped us navigate the world. I can say from personal experience, I have seen people in my community continue to believe some conspiracies that have just been factually disproven. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. There's actually evidence to indicate that even when you do actually combat conspiracy theories with facts and logic, it has like a backfiring effect, but there's been other studies that don't show that. So we're going to talk about that at the end. Do you believe in God? I do not. Is this pre-recorded? No. Why is there daylight outside? Because it's only not even 7 p.m. I'm on the West Coast. The sun is actually going down though. There's things like the gambler's fallacy or the inaccurate belief that if an event repeatedly happens during a certain time period, it will occur less often in the future. This fly, like, it did one of my like incel Instagram haters send this fly. I swear this fly is like aggressive. What are you, an atheist? I am an atheist. Yeah. This fly is what's the guy's name on Instagram? Blind perv that comments on all my, yeah, that's that fly. So that's the idea. Like, if you flip a coin, if you toss a coin and you get heads 4 times in a row, even me, and I know this, and you guys all know this, we literally, like, we think, oh, well, it's been heads 4 times in a row, therefore next time it's more likely that it'll be tails, because what are the chances of getting heads 5 times in a row? That's not really right. It's still 50-50. But you think, oh, no, it's not 50-50 because I already got the other one a bunch of times. Or you think, okay, I think like this. I'm like, oh, I've never been in a car accident, like a really bad car accident. So I'm like, well, I'm due for one. Like, you know, I like, but if I just got in a car accident, I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to get into another one in a while because I just had one. It doesn't make any sense, but that's just a fallacy that a lot of us subscribe to because we're human beings and we're idiots in some ways. You see it on camera. Can you come kill it? Okay. Speaking of conspiracies, what is your opinion on the CIA assassination of American? So I'm not going. I honestly hardly pay attention to conspiracy theories. I think it's just like a waste of my time unless I become really interested in one to like go down the rabbit hole and do all these, like, you know, if there's one in particular that a lot of you are interested in, I will research it and I will come on and I will talk about it. But in general, I like to follow the evidence and go, oh, what do you think of the 9/11 conspiracy? What do you think of the moon landing? What do you think? Like, I don't dive into these. So, whoops, I'm late. Bush did 9/11. What conspiracy theories are there that are based on facts? I remember hearing that not all of them are based on foolishness. So, I mean, some conspiracy theories, like, right, end up being true, but I think they're far and few in between. A lot of them, like I said, happened in the past. It's very hard for them to occur now. And also, the likelihood of a conspiracy theory being true changes depending. So if you're like, oh, these 2 people in my job are conspiring to get this promotion behind my back, okay, that's 2 people. That's in like a very. But if you're like, no, there is the Jews, the Jews, like the Kanye West Jews are controlling everything, or the WF is controlling everything, and they knew this, and that's why the war in Ukraine is because. If you're doing that, the more extraordinary the claim, the more extraordinary the evidence. So a lot of these conspiracy theories are extraordinary claims, and they're based on little to no evidence. That's the thing. So if you're telling me, oh, I believe in this conspiracy that my siblings conspired to rip the head off my Barbie doll, okay, you know, I'm going to believe that off little evidence because it's not that crazy of a claim. But if you're telling me that the WEF released COVID into us so they could, or Pfizer did it so that they could sell you the vaccine, you know, that's crazy. There's a good chance that Michael Sims was assassinated. Totally not a coincidence that there are so many conspiracies that are excuses to be bigoted, hateful towards the Jewish community. And this is something too. So I think people have a predisposition to believe in this evil global cabal. And then the next step is to characterize the villains, right? Okay, clearly there's an evil group that's responsible for all of this. I actually texted this to the guy who talked, the conspiracy theory guy, and he was not happy about it. But I was like, because he is a person of color, he is like he for instance, he's in Hollywood, he's like not in it, but he's an artist, and he's like, you know, in that world, and he doesn't believe the one about them. He doesn't believe that they're groomers. He doesn't believe that because, you know, a lot of people believe that Hollywood is like this Epstein pedophile ring and the whole thing, right? Not to say that there wasn't shit going on with Epstein, but to say that, okay, Hollywood, there's and if you watch the Disney movies, there's like a thing, and then the sign, and it's because they want to lure your kids in. He doesn't believe that. He also is somebody, because he falls like on the same part of the political spectrum we do, he doesn't go after the Jews, but he goes after, his villains are the elite white highly educated 1%. And I mean, I was flattered because sometimes he throws me in there. He's like, you intellectuals. I'm like, really? You're putting me in there? We are the villains, right? For people who like Nazis, the Jews are the villains. And for a lot of people, because the Jews are, or sounds about the Jews, that's not what I mean. Like Jewish people tend to be educated, successful, not a blanket statement, right? But they perceive it to be as such. They say, okay, well, they control things because, right? Kanye West pulls out and he's like, look at how many Jewish people like run this and run that. And so a lot of times you have to characterize the villain as having as many traits that are different from you as possible. So my moderator is Jewish and he says he's giving me the J pass so I can say the Jews. So, which because he gave me the pass, I'm going to now say, I'm just kidding. But let me see these. My point is that, you know, I will say, like, for instance, I'm Persian and there's this stereotype that Persians are all really rich and really successful. And there are plenty of Persians that are successful, well-educated, but that doesn't mean that like it's a stereotype, right? And when someone's like conspiratorial in their thinking, they're more likely now to take that stereotype and be like, okay, some group has to be in power. Oh, well, look, the Jews, okay, they seem to be successful, they're this, and these stereotypes, they're good with money, they run all these, okay, well then they're the ones that when shit is going wrong in the world. So if they're powerful and shit's going wrong in the world, they're causing the shit to go wrong in the world, they're the reason I'm in this position, you know. And like for my friend, he goes, okay, well, these top politicians, 1% CEOs, and trust me, I am no fan of the people at the upper, you know, the people at the top of the Pfizer. Like, I'm not any fan of them. I'm not a fan of Big Pharma. However, he's like, okay, no. They're the villains because they're very different from me. They're this, they're that, they're blah, blah, blah. They're the villains. We're not us in Hollywood. They are, right? What about the conspiracy theory that Putin and the Russian intelligence service did a slug apartment bombing? Okay, again, I'm not going to get into like specific conspiracy theories. I don't know if you're doing this like as like sarcastically, but I don't know because there are people who literally will be like, what do you think? Like do you think that like the school shootings were real? Like, I'm not going through that. Do you believe Epstein killed himself or do you think it's a conspiracy? I don't like, I have limited time, right? And I'd rather spend it listening or consuming information that better suits my interests, and conspiracy theories generally just don't. Woman, life, freedom, free Iran all day. The reason the government wanted revenue, these workers, the government wanted more people for revenue. Okay, what are you talking about? They're trying to control the population. Okay, so we have some conspiracy theorists in here. Maybe, and I hope you guys don't take offense, but I think you should stay and listen to some of the things I have to say. Okay, so, okay, so yeah, so we talked about finding these illusory patterns, and for instance, paranormal beliefs are associated with a decreased ability to see randomness. So people who are more likely to see believe in the paranormal are more likely to think things are not random in studies, which are actually random. And this is less common in university students or people that are more educated. And the reason that researchers theorize this is the case is they obviously have analytical skills, or they're developing analytical skills, critical thinking, which is, you know, my favorite thing ever. And that overrides those natural human intuitions that they have. And we've talked about this before. We'll talk about it again, that education seems to be a big predictor of likelihood of believing in conspiracy theories or not believing in conspiracy theories. So, okay, I'll say I have to be right back and put on my tinfoil to. Okay, so you're trolling. I'm like, I think he's trolling. So another evolutionary, I guess, adaptation of ours that byproduct or adaptation of ours that it like in conjunction with the other ones that I'm going to talk about, like pattern perception, leads us to believe in conspiracy theories is this idea of agency detection, which refers to our ability to recognize intentions and motives of others. So we do this even sometimes, like putting agency onto other people or putting intentions or motives on other people. We even do this with things that don't have agency, like plants, devices. This is going to ruffle some feathers, especially palm tree killer. Sit down for this, but sometimes pets. You think your pets, I'm not saying your pets don't have feelings, I don't know, but you say, oh, my dog, doesn't like that I'm sad because he did this, or my dog is, you put intentions onto and motivations and feelings onto things that may not have them. So I will say this, I watched Chimp Empire, I loved it. And I think part of the reason they did this was because they wanted to make it a show. They wanted to sense but I would like watch it and be like, like the chimp would turn his head and it would be like, Marcus is deciding whether he wants to take over, or Marcus is deciding, or Marcus is they would just put a like random emotion that he has, like, oh, Marcus may regret his decision, and he'll just like look at the camera, and I'm like, how do you know that chimp is feeling regret? You don't know, right? But we have this idea of like, oh no, we know if people, and I do this too. Like that's why I hate. One thing I hate is like destruction of property. People who smash things, like the looting in 2020. I couldn't watch it. Not even like I was not diametrically opposed to like the message, although like I didn't support looting, but like seeing things being smashed, like I feel bad for the thing. Like I don't like, it's just, I don't know. Like that's just me being like, oh my God, you just like people throwing their, like even when their phones fall, I'm like, oh, poor phone, so we have that in us. Are there studies that show level of critical thinking and the belief of conspiracy theories? So yes, I'm going to get to those. There's been studies where even they've taken groups and they've primed one group with analytical skills and one group without, and then they've later seen their likelihood to believe in certain conspiracies, and the ones that do have those skills or were taught those skills are less likely to believe. And I think education kind of shows that too, because education teaches you critical thinking. Dogs have agency. I'm not saying they don't have agency, but a lot of people, and I know you guys love your pets. You guys and me and Palm Tree Killer have a big disagreement on this. But your pets you don't know that your pets are feeling all the things that you think they're feeling. Some people are fine. They're like, oh, clearly he's barking. Like that's different than being like, he's feeling deep remorse. Like, you don't know that. Okay. Orangutan, or whatever your name is. You're like spamming the chat. Yeah, I just want to make sure I don't. Did you get the COVID vaccine, Jasmine? I did. I didn't get any boosters, but I did get the original. Not all education teaches critical thinking, though. A lot of teaching is memorization, obedience. So what do you mean by education per se? Well, they do find that people that are college educated. So I'm not usually college educated people, and especially if you get into higher education, like if you go to like law school, for instance, basically all you're learning is how to analyze critical thinking, etc. There's like a saying in law school, which I've said multiple times. They tell you the first day. My mom actually told me this. I'm not before I leave, and she's like, law school doesn't teach you the law, it teaches you how to think. So I know that's different, but even people like, that's why when people are like, oh, college is pointless because, if you can't use your degree, it's useless. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have those kinds of goals in mind. I'm not saying you should waste $200,000 to go to college and on a degree that you're never going to use. But there is evidence to indicate that people who are college educated, who have a bachelor's degree, they are able, they have better critical thinking skills because you do use them for almost any degree a lot of the time. I majored in social science, so I majored in psych, and you would need to know how to look at studies, weigh sources, how to write your papers, and make sure that the sources you were using to write your papers were valid. These are things that you learn in college. I don't know how far you went in school, but a lot of college isn't memorizing, your vocab unless you're taking like Spanish. It's different. Go back in the VODs and look for our chat on free will. Yeah, so I think they delete after 2 weeks, but we put them all up on YouTube. I'll have the moderator throw up the YouTube channel. As someone with a bachelor's degree and the son of a professor, Jasmine is 100% correct. Thank you. Studies are skewed though. No, this is the thing. So science, there's things that need to happen. Peer review, replicability. There are steps. The scientific method has steps in place to make sure that those biases are accounted for. So when you see a study that's been replicated, it's been peer reviewed, and you see those results, again, replicated, and you're looking at the methodology, you're looking at making sure it's double blind, for instance, looking at the different, because there's longitudinal studies, there's all different types of studies. So to say that the whole thing is skewed and it's all bullshit, you're dumb. Sorry, Zach. And I don't think it's your fault. I've met a lot of dumb college educated people. So that doesn't refute the claim. Education is correlated with critical thinking skills. Just because a lot of dumb college educated people, that doesn't refute that those are related. It's studies, not studies. Yeah, I didn't want to get him on that, although I did call him dumb, so maybe I should have just went with that. But do you see the recent thing that came out about a famous Harvard behavioral scientist having fabricated some of their data? Okay, so this is something that people use, like, okay, well, did you see this one thing here? So that means that this isn't true, blah, blah, blah. That's like saying, well, I know one person that had a negative reaction to the vaccine, so now all vaccines are bullshit, right? It's the perfectionist fallacy I just talked about. Well, one person, like, this is, I'm like, and I say the same thing to the left when they're like, oh, well, this cop, blah, blah, blah. Now you can say you have problems with the police as an institution, which I do, and there's issues with it, but that doesn't mean that every single one is a terrible person, and we're going to attribute the traits of this one very, very evil individual onto the whole thing. Although you can say that there are problems with the institution as a whole, and you can point out some of the reasons for that. But I think just this person, it's a fallacy. Did we just cover this in the 20? I just can't think of it right now. I've been listening to Fresh and Fit, and my brain is fried, trying to prepare for Friday. But to say that, well, here's one example, it doesn't refute a general claim. The exception doesn't make the rule. Think a bachelor degree is overrated. Well, I think you would think that. You don't know how to spell. I never understood like that. I went to university, but critical thinking is something I've been doing from a young age, so I don't know what a lot of those critical thinking skills are learned from. Yeah, so I think you can have critical thinking skills without going to school. But like reading a lot is correlated with critical thinking. People who read a lot are better at this. There are things you can do that help you develop those skills. School is one of them. It is. It just is. I'm sorry to tell you this. It just is. I'm not saying it's right for everybody, but I would urge you, if you're not going to go to school and you don't want to do that, which I'm not saying is the wrong decision, make sure you're doing things to develop these skills. Make sure you are working with challenging information. You're reading books. You do know how, you have the internet. You're so lucky. You can learn all of this. You can learn how to read a study. You can get a basic understanding of stats. You can learn a little bit on how to determine whether a source is real or not. You can look up the scientific method. You can, if you want to have problems with studies, you need to know how to read studies so you can be able to point out the issues and limitations in studies. You need to know how to do that first, though. You can't just throw it all away without knowing what the fuck you're talking about, right? So I'm not saying that college is the way for everybody. It's one way to help develop those skills. But I know people in people in the chat who have only some college versus I have law school, and I think their critical thinking skills are just as good as mine, but that's because they read a lot. They're intellectually curious. And again, if you listen to my free will discussion, I don't even necessarily think that this is people's faults that they don't have it. Some of it is correlated with intelligence, and intelligence is at least partially genetic. I understand that. But if I can if I can persuade one person against their will to think about this stuff more, and to maybe do seek out things that will help you develop these skills, even things that are going to build up your cognitive reserve. Me and Hazerston have talked about this before. do challenging puzzles, spend parts of your day trying to engage with challenging material. I'm not saying don't read for fun. Actually, reading for fun and those things will improve your vocabulary, will improve your like imagination, all of that. But do make sure you spend time also reading books that are a little challenging for you, studying topics that are challenging for you. Take me in as an example. I've been in school my whole life. Then I was in a professional setting studying. And the second I quit, Palm Tree Kill is in here. He's like my best friend. He told me the day I quit, because I called him, I was like, I quit my job. He told me, you're going to get bored because you need intellectual stimulation. And he was right, except for the fact that I do stuff like this. I'm like, well, I'm going to research something once a week and I'm going to tell you guys about it. I can develop my skills doing that. I read far more than I used to read when I was in law school, because in law school I had a bunch of required reading that I didn't even do, much less reading for fun. So I take time out of my day. I'm like, okay, every day I want to try to read an hour. I want to try to do this for an hour. I want to try to research stuff for an hour, like on podcast days, even practicing articulating my thoughts, persuading people, debating, even going on some of these podcasts improves those skills, and it keeps my brain working. It keeps me learning. You should be learning your whole life. You should be developing these skills your whole life. You don't just take the test and you're done. Right? I'm not saying this is all you have to do. I'm not saying never watch a movie again or never scroll on TikTok again, but just make sure that you're still doing things to build up these skills. You don't have to do it through school, although school is a great way to do it, because school forces you to do it when you don't want to do it. And nothing else is going to force you. That's one of the reasons I actually at some point do want to go back and get my PhD in psych. Not because I need it and not because I necessarily want to use it, but if I can, right now I'm focusing on this in my career, but if I get to a point where I can even like retire from this, I want to do it because getting a PhD is going to force me to do things I wouldn't otherwise do. It's going to force me to have a thesis. It's going to force me to do this research. It's going to force me to spend whatever many hours doing my footnotes and thinking of how I can articulate my points better in a paper that I wouldn't do otherwise. That shit that school forces you to do that you're fucking hating is good for you. Just like working out and you with a trainer who's killing you in a way that you wouldn't kill yourself is good for you. Okay, rant over. Let me see what these say. Focusing more on critical thinking skills in K to 12 would help combat against people. Yeah, I agree. I think that should be taught more. All right. So you're showing us examples of data fraud, which again doesn't refute the point. Watch Jasmine on Fresh and Fit podcast this week. Yep, Friday. And then never watch it again. I have a 2-year degree. Good for you. Tree Killer has excellent critical thinking skills. You actually do. You don't believe in bullshit. No, I hope nobody in here watches Fresh and Fit. A lot of my critical thinking skills came from the stories and puzzle solving that I was spoke to in games. Yeah. I mean, some of this really, like, there's a reason a lot of nerds are gamers. There are skills, I think. I'm not a gamer, but you know, it's not, you know, there's the stereotype, and I'm not saying all stereotypes are 100% accurate, but like, you know, the athletes and the people that are, and those are great skills to have too, versus like the nerdy gamers. There are skills involved in gaming or puzzle or solving, and I don't know about strategy even, those kinds of things that, I mean, I think people like Destiny are brilliant, and he's a fucking gamer that started from Twitch doing that. Use your body to make money. So that is what we call an ad hominem fallacy. I missed the beginning. No worries. We're still going through it. I hate my mom. Yeah, because you're an insult. No, it is the agenda from both the right and the left that used to gain votes and strike. That is another tenet of conspiracy theories, is they love to bring together opposites. So Nazis were like, well, capitalism and communism, you may think they're opposed, but that's what the Jews want you to think, la la la. Or, ooh, the left, and you think Biden and Trump are really that different? They're the same. It's the World Economic Forum. So this idea also that these people with widely opposing interests are actually puppets and they're the same for the secret global cabal, that's part of the structure of this stuff. All right. Thank you, Palm Tree Killer. Can we please put up the hashtags? Um, when you have discussions and people keep using distraction techniques, how do you find it's best to combat that? Depends on your audience, but if it's an audience that purports to care about logic and reason, like for instance, that's what I'm going to do on Fresh and Fitness. I'm going to point out the fallacies. That's a non sequitur. That's a red herring. And I'm going to explain it to them. And if, there are some people who say, I don't care about science, it's all bullshit, like this guy. That's different. I don't know what you probably just want to leave. But if there's people that purport, oh, no, I'm saying this is based on science and logic. Well, science and logic have rules. So if you're breaking the rules, I'm going to point out that you're breaking the rules. And now you're going to have to explain yourself. And that works. Okay. So agency detection, or did I do that one? Yes. So I talked about how we do that sometimes with plants and even pets. I thought Palm Tree Killer was going to come for me for that, but I guess not. So various studies indeed support a link between hyperactive agency detection and conspiracy theories. For instance, increased conspiracy belief is associated with increased and tromorphism and with related measures assessing people's tendency to oversubscribe or overscribe intentionality to anatomy. So people who have this hyperactive thing of I know your intentions, I know your motivations, I know your feelings, agency detection, which again serves an evolutionary purpose, but can go too far, which a lot of the things that evolutionary served us, like our affliction for potato chips, and all of us want to eat potato chips all day. I do. But our capacity to reason is like, okay, well, now we don't need to eat as many potato chips as possible because we have too much. So, sorry. My birth control pill is ready for pickup. Let me go up. What about when you know they're using a distraction, but you don't know the name of it? Point out that it's a distraction and ask them to state their premise and the conclusion, or state your motion or your claim, and then state your conclusion and ask them what kind of premises they're using to support you know what I mean? Like, ask them to put it in a logically valid form. And how you do that is there needs to be sound premises, and a conclusion has to logically follow from those premises. And so when people claim to be making an argument from logic, like a lot of times these Fresh and Fit people do, and it's not, ask them. So if you guys saw me on the whatever podcast, I should have done this with promiscuity. When they're like, you're arguing semantics, I'm not arguing semantics. I'm asking you to have a logically valid claim. Premise 1, promiscuity involves having multiple partners. Premise 2, Michelle slept with Brian the first night. Conclusion, Michelle is promiscuous. That doesn't follow, because promiscuity means something, and then you're jumping to a conclusion that didn't follow. If you want to change the definition, change the definition, but you need to be able to make it logically follow. And I would also say it's a good idea to read up on them, and so you are able to identify them, not just so you can point them out, but so you can identify them yourselves, and you can even know when you're using them, because we all use them. Does criticizing corporate media fall into this trap, criticizing them as they make news to serve corporate interests in manufacture consent for war? So no, it's not a conspiracy theory to say that the media is influencing you to believe certain things. Conspiracy theories, to me, like the global cabal theory, which is kind of the one I'm focusing on, whether it's the Jews that are the evil cabal, or WF that's the evil cabal, or like whatever it is that you're choosing, the idea that these people are controlling everything, and that's mostly what I'm talking about. And I think a false dichotomy that comes from a lot of this is, well, okay, so because you don't believe that the Jews are controlling everything, you believe everything the media tells you? No. Just because I don't believe this doesn't mean I believe the opposite. Those aren't the only two options. Okay. You believe the CIA created the word conspiracy theory in order to discredit the people who find them? I don't have any information to believe that. Conspiracy theories have existed long before the CIA came into existence. If you want to know what high value means, I don't really need to know what high value means, because none of them know what high value means. The idiots got the vaccine. Thank you. I am staying cool, although it's really hot over here. We got some conspiracy theorists in here. My Discord chat is like, oh God. When I lived in Portland, I got suspicions of Freemasons. Their art is so odd. Okay, next, I'm going to continue. So we also have this idea pertaining to error management theory, which is another explanation for why people believe in conspiracy theories. So it posits that human beings will be biased in predictable ways when the cost of false positives are unequal to the cost of false negatives. Although, so basically the theory, it's kind of like Pascal's wager, if you're familiar with philosophy that people use in religion a lot of the time. Well, if God does exist and you're wrong, that's going to be really bad because you're going to go to hell and the consequences are more dire. But if God doesn't exist and you believe in him anyway, there's really not a cost to that. Now, I have my issues with it. Cosmic Skeptic did a great video on this, saying number one, we're kind of all fucked because which God do you choose to believe in? If you believe in one God, you're still probability wise fucked. And two, you can't really force yourself to believe in things. And three, I think there is a big cost to believing in God because he kind of wants to control all your fucking actions. So, but anyways, this is kind of that idea when it comes to conspiracy theories. The cost of not believing in or not recognizing it. You don't recognize the threat. You're stupid. You're blah, blah, blah. And if you do, and it's not real, especially like, I guess the only downside is social consequences or being socially ostracized. But when enough people believe them, and a lot of these theories have a lot of followers, and these people like to congregate and they're like in the same forums and the same comment sections, they're not the only ones who believe in this, right? Part of the reason they believe in it is because they feel like they found a club of other people that also believe in this shit. So you're not really even getting a negative to believing in it, other than just being wrong. The modified Pascal's wager is the most. What's the modified? I don't know about that. Okay. And yeah, so involves certain error management theory would predict that under recognizing conspiracy theories becomes more costly to the extent that the dangers of real conspiracies increase. How is God not all powerful? That is true. I do have amazing new content on OnlyFans that I shot over the weekend. Or not over the weekend, last week. We also have a proportionality bias, which is that we think that big consequences or big things they must have big reasons for them. So for instance, like if the president dies right now, even Joe Biden, if Joe Biden dies right now, this man is damn near extinct. He's very old. If he dies right now, it is impossible for there not to be a conspiracy theory that comes out of it, right? If Trump, if he gets a cold and dies, there's no way because he's the president. The president can't just die because of a cold. There has to be a big reason because it's a big deal that the president just died. And so that's the proportionality bias, that the more impactful or the more the bigger the event is, the bigger impact it has, then the cause must be more complex and it must be bigger. No, everyone fucking dies. So it is possible that Joe Biden could die of natural causes as I'm saying this. Which God forbid, because I don't think any of us want Kamala Harris in charge, but y'all should look up Nick Fuentes. Oh, yeah, guys, Nick Fuentes, yes. What a smart guy. If Jasmine Jafar dies, it must be a conspiracy because of a big, impactful event. I'm going to pull at Andrew Tate here and say right now, I would never kill myself, guys. He was spitting bars yesterday. Oh, for sure. So what makes people believe in conspiracy theories? Lower levels of education. So this has been linked repeatedly the less educated someone is, the more likely they're going to believe in conspiracy theories. I'm not going to say this is just like because they're dumber, but like I said, I do think that in school you learn the scientific method. You learn critical thinking skills. You learn what a credible source is. These aren't the only ways to learn, but they are ways to learn. And for instance, I'll use example in law that I used in my last stream. Criminal cases are based on solid and provable evidence, not hunches, not coincidences, not memes, not social media posts. I can't prove a case with social media posts and coincidences and hunches in my gut and the Matrix conspiracy theory. I have to have evidence. I had to learn what real evidence looks like. I have to know why hearsay is a problem. I have to learn why. I had to learn why we have rape shield. That's Palm Tree Killer's favorite. So it's correlation, not causation. So being less educated doesn't cause you to. I mean, it maybe does, but it is correlated. That the less educated people are, the more likely they are to subscribe to conspiracy theories, and that's just a fact. I'm sorry. And I'm not saying that that's 100% because there are very people who aren't educated who have great critical thinking skills who don't believe in them. But you also don't see a lot of highly educated people believe in conspiracy theories. It's just, and you might think it's because we're indoctrinated by the Matrix, but that's just what it is. You base your entire life off education. Yeah, that's definitely not a straw man. Trump loves the poorly educated. Well, more poorly educated people tend to be Trump supporters more so than educated people. So that's another thing. Sometimes we do have people like Cliff who, for other reasons, which we'll get into, some other things, maybe Cliff has some of those that are also linked to being likely to believe in conspiracy theories. Like, we'll go to the next one, powerless. So the more powerless and disillusioned people are, the more they're going to want to find meaning in anything and everything. Makes them think they have information. It does link to subjective social class. So interestingly, and I do find this a lot, like with the Kanye stuff, like some people, oh my God, or people who follow Nick Fuentes, a lot of these people have no power in our society. They have no power. They don't hold positions of power. They don't even hold like basic white collar jobs. Like they don't have power in our society. These aren't the upper echelons of society. These aren't, professors. These aren't politicians. These are just, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with their position in society, but the people who don't have a lot of power, lower socioeconomic status, they're also more likely to believe in conspiracy theories. A 2008 study found that lacking control in a situation increased a person's likelihood to perceive non-existent patterns, including developing superstitions and believing in conspiracies. In a 2015 study in the Netherlands, researchers split college students into 3 groups. People in one group were primed to feel powerless. The scientists asked them to recall and write about a time in their life where they felt like they were not in control of the situation they were in. Those in the second group were cued in the opposite direction. They were asked to write about a time they felt totally in control, and others in the third group were asked something neutral to describe what they had for dinner last night. Then the researchers asked all the groups how they felt about the construction of a new subway line in Amsterdam that had been plagued by problems. Students who had been primed to feel in control were less likely than students in the other 2 groups to support conspiracy theories regarding the subway line, such as the belief that the city council was stealing from the subway's budget, that it was intentionally jeopardizing residents' safety. So other studies have uncovered similar effects. Swami and his colleagues, for instance, reported in 2016 that individuals who feel stress are more likely than others to believe in conspiracy theories. And a 2017 study found that promoting anxiety in people also made them more conspiracy-minded. I was basically a drug addict and I had to find meaning. Okay, there we go. Not saying that there's anything wrong with you, but how old is Jasmine? I'm 28. Elon is highly educated, but he believes conspiracies, right? So again, exception doesn't prove the rule. He's one of the only ones. That's why he's such an anomaly. Whereas every other person in power is like, what the fuck is wrong with that guy? Yeah. Some of the dumbest people I've met have gone to 4-year colleges. Okay, that's some of the dumbest people you've met. You're definitely one of the dumbest people I've met in the comment section. What do you want me to do with that information? What's anecdotal? I wasn't justifying anything to you. Okay. So yeah. Feeling alienated or unwanted also seems to make conspiratorial thinking more attractive. In 2017, Princeton University psychologists set up an experiment with trios of people. The researchers asked all participants to write 2 paragraphs describing themselves and then told them that their descriptions would be shared with 2 other people in their group who would use that information to decide if they would work with the person in the future. After telling some subjects that they had been accepted by their groups and others that they had been rejected, the researchers evaluated the subjects' thoughts on various conspiracy-related scenarios. The rejected participants, feeling alienated, were more likely than others to think the scenarios involved a coordinated conspiracy. So, multiple studies here. In conjunction with poor education, I say a subset of it would be lack of desire to learn or understand or information readily available that isn't interesting enough. Yeah, and it's not their fault. So it's annoying, and I'm human, so I get angry because I'm just like, you're fucking dumb. But it's not your fault you're dumb. And I know that sounds so condescending, but I don't know what else to say about it. I'm dumb in a lot of ways too. I just told you. I think my phone has feelings, but I know that that's dumb. Okay. But isn't Elon believing in conspiracy theories for profit like Andrew Tate and Ben Shapiro? I mean, that's another conspiracy. I don't know. I'm not saying it's just the right that believes in conspiracy theories. The left believes in conspiracy theories. A lot of people believe in conspiracy theories. Have you ever gotten your IQ tested by a professional psychologist, Jasmine? I've never taken an IQ test because there's been no point, but I did take the LSAT, obviously, because I had to take it to go into law school, which is an exam that tests your ability, your ability to your logical reasoning skills, your reading comprehension. Those are the 2 things it tests, and I scored within like the top 5% of everyone taking the test, and these are obviously smart people taking the test because these are people going to law school. So I consider myself to be intelligent in that way. Intelligence is multifaceted. I lack it in many things. I actually don't know if I do great on an IQ test. I think I would do better on the LSAT than an IQ. Well, IQ test is different because you're comparing yourself to everybody. So I actually think I do well. But my spatial reasoning, trash. Someone tells me, okay, imagine this cube, and now imagine it. I don't know what the fuck you're saying. So I'm good at analyzing. I'm good at reading comprehension. Certain things I'm good at. Not good at other things. Logical reasoning, critical thinking, analyzing, these are things I'm actually good at. Okay. Let's go, Veronica. Your phone has feelings, but my dog doesn't. Your dog has feelings. I'm not saying your dogs don't have feelings. I'm just saying that you have a tendency to subscribe intention, like to believe that your dog has intentions. Or I mean, this is what we're made to do. What do you think children, like every children's movie has like the frog or like the nice little bunny, and we're also animals who like animals that are more similar to us. So the bunny's nice, the snake is mean, the spider's mean, the puppy's nice. It's like we're naturally, we think that. Do all, do bears are really bears similar to Winnie the Pooh in any way? Not really. So that's what I'm saying. But again, those children probably would be more likely to believe in conspiracy theories too. I used to think the printer at my work had feelings. Yeah, I do too. But like, I know that. Stop watching streams and do your work. I am Zach C. Your employer does not pay you to watch your streams. Your employer pays you to maximize shareholder value. That's true. Uneducated people prefer to choose simple answers. Yeah. A lot of us want to find simplicity. We want to find patterns. We want to box people. That's like a lot of the relationship advice I give, which Palm Tree Killer knows I can definitely get in my feelings, but when I'm not in my feelings, if you watch my whatever podcast, this is why I say, like, if I like somebody, I like to wait to have sex because that can cloud my judgment. And when my judgment's clear, I don't make those gaps. Like, I want to like this person. Okay, they showed me this. Okay, they must be good. They must be nice. They must be great. They must be this, right? You see this all the time when people are like, oh, I don't know how this happened. Everything was so great. And then you actually talk to them and they're like, well, yeah, and I guess he could never communicate. Well, okay, so did you think one day he was going to wake up and, and you get that logically, but when your emotions and all that are involved, that can override your logic. But when your logic is strong and you use it, it's pretty powerful. Okay. 20 minutes. My employer pays me to respond when needed. Yeah, our pets are a little emotional projectionists, and that's fine. And and your pets love you, and you love your pets. Animal lovers don't. So Palm Tree Killer is a huge animal lover, and I have some choice words for me after this. I like animals, but I'm not like people who have full blown conversations with your animals. Fine, as long as you realize that you're having a full blown conversation with an animal who's not able to reciprocate. I'm sufficiently happy with being dumb in some things because that means that drives the pinnacle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization. I continue to desire to want to learn and improve. Exactly. Whatever podcast, where do I find that? Go to Palm Tree Killer actually said exactly what it is. But if you go to whatever on YouTube and then you go to the lives and go to dating talk number 84, I memorized it now. And that's 5.5 hours. I don't know if you want to suggest. If you also go to the clips, they have like a different channel. So their podcast has like 4 million subscribers. Their clips is like 600,000. All the ones that have me doing a weird face, it's like lawyer chick defends hookup culture. If you want to see me, like you can go click on those. I wouldn't suggest watching the whole 4 hours. I mean 5 hours. I didn't talk for a lot of it. You have to treat a certain way to make it work well, so it kind of seems like sensitive to someone's feelings. I fought for this country so people like Jasmine can show their tits. I'm so sorry you did that. But sucks for you. Good thing you didn't die. Some people died so I could show my tits. That's worse. Cup half full. Whatever on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch. You also fought so defense contractors could make a shit ton of money. Yeah, I could say you fought so that we could get vaccine mandates. Like I could just say whatever. Anything you don't like, you also technically fought for. I don't have any issues with people who fight for our country, but like I'm also proud that I can show my tits because you did that. Sorry. All right. Next. Also, like just I did this on the last one, but if you guys want to test your superstition levels, think about the following. Like, would you rather wear a shirt worn by Charles Manson or put a nickel in your mouth? A lot of us are like, well, I don't want to wear a shirt by Charles Manson. Like, you think the shirt, like even if it's washed, like it has like remnants of like killer on it. But that's irrational. It quite literally doesn't. Would you rather stab a photo of your dad 5 times or put your hand in a bowl of cockroaches? Like people, these are common ones. You can look on the internet. There's a bunch of these. And a lot of people, they think there's some, oh no, I can't stab a photo of the person I love, even though it's not doing anything you know, and that's normal. I'm not saying I don't have it too. I'm not somebody who's primed in this way. And I think that's just natural. Some people are more naturally inclined, maybe because of some of those other factors. But I immediately, for me, all 3 of them, I picked the more logical answer. I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago with the trolley exercises that like there's something about, okay, if you're going to kill 5 people or you move it and now you kill 1 person, we do that. But if you push, like there are certain things that people feel like, oh, even though if you're looking at it from a utilitarian perspective of you're saving 5 lives and not 1 life, but certain things make you be like, actually, this is wrong, even if it serves the same outcome. And when they had when they would scan the brains of those people, the people who still chose to pick the more reasonable, like logical choice, they found more brain activity in the parts of their brain that's responsible for like the cognitive capabilities. So the part of your brain for reason and rational inquiry is stronger in some and not in others. And I think developing your critical thinking skills is a way to do that. Another common one, would you rather stay in a really nice hotel where a family was once murdered or a really crappy motel? A lot of people are like, I'm not fucking with that. I'm not staying in a house where people were murdered, the ghosts, blah, blah, blah. Now, again, if you're religious or superstitious or supernatural, you're probably looking at me like, you're crazy. Of course not. But if you're not, if you're like someone more like me, then you're going to get the point of this exercise. What do you do in the trolley? So the trolley is like it's like a fucking thought experiment that's been used in everything from abortion to, it's been like, where it's basically like if you're on a train and it's going on a track that's going to kill 5 people, or you can turn it and it's going to go on the track to kill only 1 person, do you do it? And a lot of people are like, yes. But then when you're like, okay, what if there's someone standing there and that 1 person, you can throw them and it'll stop the train, and so it'll only kill that 1 person, but it won't kill 5. A lot of people then say, like, people, if you switch it, people change their minds depending on the action that they need to take to save the 5 people over the 1 person. And a lot of that, they don't really have a reason for it. They're just like, but they like, for instance, even this is going to be controversial. So, and I know some of you guys in here are going to be like, of course, incest. What's wrong with incest? Obviously, procreation. We have a natural ick feeling with incest. But if you say, okay, this brother and sister, they want to be together. They're never going to have kids. She has her tubes tied. He has a vasectomy. Is it immoral for them to be together? We all want to say yes. But do you have a reason for it? And even when you explain this to people, okay, well, what's the reason? They're like, no, it's a reason. It's bad because of procreation. They're gonna, but they can't have babies. Now what? It's just bad, So yeah, people are gonna be like, of course she believes in incest. 15 minutes. I never watched it, but apparently appeals to. As soon as a vet brags, I tune out. Real soldiers don't beg for attention. Facts. Give me a murdered hotel. Palm Tree Killer. We're gonna stay in a hotel. Go somewhere. Not begging for attention, just pointing out that people don't respect military. Well, like by saying I'm in the military, respect me. It's kind of like, it's not very alpha of you. So how many innocent Afghanis did you kill during your military service to protect Jasmine's tits? Ooh. I don't blame military members for stuff like that. But if you're going to come and say that I didn't fight for this, I'm sorry. You fought for my freedom to do this. You should have fought for a country like Saudi Arabia, which is much more draconian and has your principles that you want. See you soon, Veronica. I used to work in the private equity industry. It's so horrible. I got to go to work, but thank you for the intellectual conversation. Take care. Bye. We only have 15 minutes left anyways. Also, lack of evidence, lack of proof shouldn't be taken as evidence for a conspiracy. And this is something conspiracy theorists, there's 2 things. 1, a lack of evidence doesn't prove your point, right? Same thing with religion. Just because we have the famous Bill O'Reilly claim, tide came in, comes in, tide comes out. You can't explain that. So you don't know why we're here. You don't know. That doesn't prove your point. And the burden of proof is on you because you're making the claim. You're saying that so-and-so caused COVID and you prove it. I don't have to prove the opposite. I don't have to prove that it didn't happen. Like, it's like, you can't prove God doesn't exist. I'm not trying to. I'm not making an affirmative claim that God doesn't exist. I'm saying that I don't believe your claim that he does. There is not compelling evidence for me to believe in God, just like I'm not saying I can prove to you that there is no tooth fairy, yet I don't believe in a tooth fairy because there's no evidence for me to believe in a tooth fairy. So this is the same thing with conspiracy theories. It drives me crazy. Burden of proof is on the person making the affirmative claim. So if there's lack of evidence for God's existence, God doesn't exist. No, if there's a lack of evidence for God's existence, then there's no reason to believe in God. So again, there's a little, like, people sometimes really don't get this. If there's no evidence that unicorns don't exist, does that mean, or unicorns exist, does that mean they don't exist? We live as if they don't exist, because if you don't believe in something, you obviously live as and go about your life as if they don't exist, but you're not saying it's impossible. You just need evidence for it. God of the gaps. Yeah. You can't explain what caused the Big Bang, therefore God. Tide's coming. Tide's coming. But there is evidence that gods exist. Okay, I'm not trying to get into this, but no, there really isn't. But is there a reason to disbelieve in God? Yeah, there's a reason to not believe in anything on insufficient evidence. That's what reason is about, in my opinion. If you want to use Pascal's wager, go for it. But Pascal's wager, I think, isn't a good reason to believe in anything. Okay, let me get through this and then we'll maybe have a few extra minutes. Also interesting, I think this was in an article I read. Although humans seek solace in conspiracy theories, they rarely find it. They're appealing, but not necessarily satisfying. This was a psychologist at the University of Nottingham in England. For one thing, conspiratorial thinking can incite individuals to behave in a way that increases their sense of powerfulness, make them feeling even worse. A 2014 study co-authored by Jolly found that people who are presented with conspiracy theories about climate change, scientists are just chasing grant money, for instance, are less likely to plan to vote. I do find this. People who are like, well, fuck it. There's no point in me voting. There's no point in me doing anything. They're all corrupt anyway. So it just kind of reinforces, it's like a, what is it called? Self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't have any power. We don't have any power. They have all the power. So let's not try to utilize the power we do have. People, and then sometimes it has bad effects, right? People who believe in vaccine conspiracy theories are less likely to vaccinate their kids, which causes harm to those outside of themselves. So, question: is it a good idea to counter conspiracy theories with logic and evidence? Older research has pointed to a backfire effect, the idea that refuting misinformation can make individuals dig their heels in deeper. If you think there are powerful forces trying to conspire and cover things up, when you're given what you see as a cover story, it only shows you how right you are. And I'm sure we've all experienced this. We've experienced this tonight. People, if you like, well, this is the evidence. Oh, well, that's fake. That's fake. That just proves my point more. There needs to be some foundation for people to actually, in order for a debate or a discussion to be worth it. You can't not believe in science. You can't say all studies are false. You can't not believe in the scientific method. You have to believe in certain law, like there's certain things we all have to believe in, right? Like certain laws of logic, the law of non-contradiction. My phone can't exist and also not exist at the same time. If you're like, well, I don't know of any, I just don't know if he is conscious. If you go too far, there's no point. There's just no point. Yet you can have intelligent people, and as long as they agree on those basics, then you can have a discussion. Here are my studies. Okay, well, here are the problems with your studies. Here are some studies that counteract it, that have a better sample size, that have a blah, 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 blah. Those, fine, have those conversations. But people like, I am Zach the whatever, it's not worth it. But other research suggests that there is that this can help. And a 2016 paper reported that when scientists refuted a conspiracy theory by pointing out its logical inconsistencies, it became less enchanting to people. And in a study published in 2018 in Political Behavior, researchers recruited more than 10,000 people and presented them with corrections to various claims made by political figures. The authors concluded that evidence of factual backfire is far more tenuous than prior research suggests. In a review article, the researchers who first described the backfire effect said that it may arise most often when people are being challenged over ideas that define their worldview or sense of self, religion. Finding ways to counter conspiracy theories without challenging a person's identity may therefore be an effective strategy. I could definitely work on this. Encouraging analytical thinking may also help. In 2014, a study, Swami and his colleagues recruited 112 people for an experiment. First, they said, had everyone fill out a questionnaire that evaluated how strongly they believed in various conspiracy theories. A few weeks later, the subjects came back in and the researchers split them into two groups. One completed a task that included unscrambling words and sentences containing words such as analyze and rational, which primed them to think more analytically. The second group completed a neutral task. Then the researchers re-administered the conspiracy theory test to the two groups. Although the groups had been no different in terms of conspiratorial thinking at the beginning of the experiment, the subjects who had been incited to think analytically became less conspiratorial. Thus, by giving people the tools and skills to analyze data and to look at data critically and objectively, we might be able to suppress conspiratorial thinking. Analytical thinking can also help discern implausible theories from ones that, as crazy as they may sound, are supported by evidence. So yeah, again, not all conspiracy theories are the same. People who think there's a government microchip in us, kind of bonkers, right? So Karen Murphy, an educational psychologist at UPenn, suggests that individuals who want to improve their analytical thinking skills should ask 3 questions when interpreting conspiracy claims. Are we listening? Number 1, what is your evidence? Number 2, what is their source for that evidence? Number 3, what is the reasoning that links your evidence back to the claim? Sources of evidence need to be accurate, credible, and relevant. For instance, you shouldn't take advice from your mom about whether the yellow color under your fingernails is a bad sign. Murphy says that information could come from someone who has expertise on the topic, such as a physician. So critical thinking skills do work. They do help. I do think sometimes, though, there are people that are too far gone. Oh, it hurts. See, okay, I got 5 minutes. Let me go through these comments. I'm convinced leprechauns are hiding the unicorns. Me too. Your culture, Jasmine, comes from the tradition of an organized belief based on God. The cultures that don't develop don't have organized religions. The greatest evidence for all of Western. My culture, so Iranian culture, and who blindly follows their culture. That's an indication that you lack critical thinking skills. There are parts of my culture I love. I just talked to Palm Tree Killer about this. I love that we're very generous with our friends and family. We're very family oriented. I love that. Those are great values. Our views on sexual purity, homosexuality, these archaic bullshit views, this customary morality that doesn't withstand rational inquiry. I don't follow that. I don't just follow a team. I'm not a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. Shouldn't talk like that, but I'm not fully convinced I believe in myself. Yeah, I have those moments too on edibles. I'm like, what am I real? But in general. Okay, so if people who think all research is funded by the corporate oligarchy or the matrix, not worth it. And you can't say science has proven much at all. We barely understand the human brain. That's true. We don't understand a lot of things, but there are things we do understand. And just because, again, the answer, I don't know, doesn't make your claim true. Haven't you heard, Jazz? It's all the matrix. Digging their heels in, case in point, JFK was 9/11 was inside job. Yeah, all of those. Yep. What is proper research? Yep, watch me on Fresh and Fit on Friday. It's not based on surveys, has strong controls, usually deals primarily on human facts. Many conspiracy theories don't belong on the same debate stage as real science because it adds a false legitimacy to, yeah. And that's why you don't hear a lot of, and there's some people disagree. Some people are like, they're worth it to engage with. A lot of the elites don't want to engage in it because it's just and it's so boring to people. Like, you don't understand. Like, it's like, these people are brilliant. They could be solving world problems. They don't want to sit there and tell you why you don't have a government microchip in your brain from getting COVID, like from getting the vaccine. Like, it's just not something we want to do. And there's arguments as for both. You are explaining things off your phone, but it'll be easier. Yeah, I mean, I could do a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm a busy bitch and I'm not a professor. I do like these. And if you guys want me to share sources, you can always DM me and I will share all my sources with you, but I'm not putting together a fucking PowerPoint presentation. I am shaking my titties and getting naked in 2 minutes. I don't understand people's beliefs that the government is microchip Travis. People believe it. Obviously, they're different. Yep. D. Hizzle's argument. No shit, I can't go out with a clipboard and call it research, but I can develop a questionnaire, get a good sample size, account for various factors. Yeah, and a lot of questionnaire questions are reviewed and reviewed and reviewed. You're reviewed by your peers. You don't just make a questionnaire and do you know how much those questions are revised for bias? If they want to make sure it's not loaded, the way the things are phrased. Have you guys ever, I was actually just, my friend was taking the Big 5 personality test. He's like, they asked me this. They asked you it in a different way. you guys know those legitimate tests that ask you the same shit in like 20 different ways. Am I organized, moderately correct, accurate, and then 2 seconds later, I tend to be unorganized. Like they want to make sure that your responses are consistent when the question is asked in a different way. He wouldn't be a lawyer in Iran. No, but why would I want to be a lawyer in Iran? My mom was a lawyer in Iran, and then Iran was like, fuck all women, and now she's a lawyer here. All right, 7:59. We got 1 minute. Switch over to OF when she logs off to see her other live, the freaky live. I know it's definitely a shift, but I know a lot of you guys like to see both sides of me. I have a really sexy, I have a Skims, like the little boy shorts on with this, no bra. So we're gonna go have some fun over there. Y'all have fun on OnlyFans. Thank you. So Palm Tree Killa is a government bot of mine though. Thanks for the stream. Thank you. Next week, I probably won't have one because I'll still be in Miami, but it's possible I will. I have to see. So stay tuned for updates on that. If not, I will do a stream later in the week. If you guys are interested, some of you can't join, some of you can, in joining my Discord, invite only. But I think a lot of you, like I know a lot of you in here are already in it. The ones that if you want to be in it, ask. And if from you join enough and you seem like you're actually trying to engage in good faith in these kind of discussions, you can join. And we're going to have a watch party on there. Well, not me, because I'll not be watching. I'll be doing it. But yeah, Palm Tree Killa and my sister also have their own watch party. Will Zach join the OF stream? Probably. They usually do. Okay. I'm late. I'm going to go join. I'm going to move over to the bed. See you there.